who owns these liabilities? Why do people own them? And how do people work this stuff there? So here's the first thing. A mining company has a life. It's an economic life. It's driven by when it can mine the ore, when it can make things happen, when it can do this, when it can do that. It has an economic life. The reality is that life, if you're lucky, is going to be measured in 100 years, 150 years. BHP might exist as a company in 150 years. Rio Tinto might exist. I'm going to argue almost no other mining company today is going to exist in 150 years. They just won't exist. The companies will not exist because they will not have ore bodies left over. Vale alone will probably not exist purely because at some point the government structure between the company and the country will have an issue. There'll be an issue that will fundamentally change the corporate structure. So fundamentally, the term of a tailings dam, however, is not 150 years. It's 300 years, 400 years, 500 years. These structures we're building are some of the largest man-made structures on the planet, with some of the least long-term sustainable capital on the planet that we're looking at. These are not tiny things. When you're talking about 2 billion cubic tons or a billion cubic meters, these are not small structures. These are going to be seen from space style things. And fundamentally, the term of these structures liability is going to be longer than the mining company and longer than the life of the country in a lot of instances. There's the concept of too big to fail is a financial concept. So one of the things that we did in 2008 when we had the US financial crisis was we merged all the banks together so they would not fail. So now we have even bigger banks that when they blow up, they're going to be even worse. Should we have JP Morgan Chase control 25% of the US cash flow situation? Should that be a reality? Or is that just nuts? I'm not being hypothetical here. I'm coming at the perspective of reality. What is our level? At what point do we end up with a non-viable? Why do we not just solve this problem? Why do we not fix this problem? And I don't think it's as simple as I thought it was when I started. And I've really broken it down to 4 core things that we do wrong as an industry. The first one is we don't organize the costs of a tailings dam in a rational way with rational discounting or non-discounting or compounding or non-compounding on the operational perspective. No one owns all of it. Someone owns the thickener, someone owns lifts, someone owns some pumps, someone owns an energy contract. It's not actually an entire unit of the mine in an economic perspective. We don't see on corporate financial reports a section, here's our 30 tailings dams, here's their size, here's their risk, here's the total closure cost, and here's the potential closure cost. It doesn't show up in an organized cost structure anywhere in the business. We don't organize it. And when you don't organize, what you don't see isn't tracked. What isn't tracked doesn't actually work. So I don't think it's liability diversification. I think it's just a lack of knowledge. I'll give you an interesting example. I am doing Noom. Why am I doing Noom? Because I need to lose 7 pounds. I don't really need to lose 7 pounds. My wife wants to lose 40 pounds or something. She hasn't told me how much she wants to lose, but she wants to lose a lot of weight. And her method of losing a lot of weight is to go on a diet. My method of staying sane is to go on the exact same diet. So I make sure that I can cook the exact meals that she needs, and I know what's going to come when it's going to come. So I spent $200 on Noom so I can mimic her diet, because I don't have any interest in having conflict about the diet, because I'm going to make a nice dinner that I want to eat. Oh, I can't eat that. That's a problem. It's just cheaper to go on the diet. But by going on the diet, I'm costing all my different foods. I now am eating my chocolate and this thing, and instead of eating hundreds of grams, I'm eating 100% pure dark chocolate from Trader Joe's, which, by the way, is excellent. And I'm eating less of it because I'm thinking about it, because I have to track it at the end of the class. So I'm measuring my chocolate in grams versus ounces. So until you actually force yourself to budget, you don't know what you're budgeting. And that's partially because we just don't need to. So that's the first issue. The second issue, which I think is real, is we don't value the depletion of an asset that we use up. We don't value the negative energy space we create. The negative is every time you put a ton behind a tailings dam, you lose the right to put another ton behind the tailings dam. You don't get it twice. You don't get to have the second ton. You don't get to replace that ton. That is a volume of space that you're removing the right to use in the future, and we don't value that. We don't value the wealth that that right gives you. Therefore, we don't price it correctly. Why? Because it doesn't show up on a balance sheet. The fact that you have the right to put 2 billion tons behind a tailings dam and each ton can generate $180 million of revenue does not show up on the balance sheet for $0, even though that right gives the company the ability to produce $360 billion of revenue. Now, we got two more things we don't value. We don't value our license to operate. And then finally, mining industry does not value its water because water is free. Things are changing. But that doesn't mean we value the license to operate. It means that as a company, we are losing a lot of our power at the table. The companies are losing the power. Anyways, let's move on. How are we going to get better? Let's rotate these things. What do I want to do? I want to organize things. I want to organize cost centers. I want to organize cost centers so they look like the flow chart of a mining company. So I want to organize the cost centers so they look like one of Ben's flow chart areas. Here's the mill, here's the mine, here's the pit, here's this, here's that. I want to have cost centers organized in a rational way at a mine to make change happen. I want clearly delineation between where profit is, where loss is, where liability is, and I want time scale attached to those things emotionally. I don't think anyone does that. That would make a huge difference. I want to shift the risk management culture. Not hard. I want people to start pricing risk. Right now, it's too emotionally scary to do it. But we have to start actually pricing it. Because a lot of companies might actually be bankrupt based purely on their risks that they don't actually price. And then finally, the last two things is in BC, mining companies will never build another tailings dam. They lost their license to operate there. In Brazil, tailings dams are now not being allowed, pretty much. They lost their license to operate there. Within 10 years, I don't expect we'll have a license to build a new tailings dam anywhere in the world. We're losing it. And we're not losing it because we did a good job. We're losing it because we lost it. Sorry, I don't mean that as an industry perspective of nicety. I mean that as a perspective of we're just losing stuff because we lost it. And finally, we're starting to value water. These things are starting to change. So yes, I agree that things are going to change, Angela. It's not an absolute, there's zero, but it's a lot less of where we need to be.